One right here.
One right here. Oh, good lord, my overall is ticklish.
So hello, we are the Tiny Tricycle Poets. I'm Angelica.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Emma.
And we'd like to start off with this little poem. How to smile for a picture. Picture yourself like a match. Like a real sexy match being put out in water. Ooh, yeah. Like you like that. Like you're a kinky little matchstick who likes being put into water. Like, ooh. Now smile. Smile. Smile for the camera and picture yourself like you want your toes dancing around in that boiling hot H2O! Picture yourself just making your way down to Sizzletown. Thank you.
Thank you. So me, now that they're gone, real jokey ones. I'd like to acknowledge where we are today at Havana Theatre, which is on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people. If you're interested in reconciliation, which I think we should all be, living here, there's actually a really cool show happening at the MOA, burlesque, indigenous burlesque performers. They're going to be doing cool stuff, reclaiming their own bodies. So yeah, it's good to practice reconciliation any way you can. But on another note, for myself, I've been going through some stuff. And like, I don't know, people are always going through stuff, what am I saying? But yeah, that's why we make art. We're going through stuff all the time. This is about me going through something. I went through a breakup, and yeah, I wrote this poem about it. Yeah. I'm stuck making love to the same mistakes. Playing back memories in stillness. Watching cathedrals crack themselves while the whole city that never sleeps watches these beliefs fall out. Eyes wide, motionless, hopeless, caught in the glory of a daydream. They stare, seeing the shades of purple magic and velvet abracadabra become crucified into the crumble of concrete. Despite it all, believe that their gods still stand complete. In awe from seeing the foundations of their thoughts float from religious to rigid to hopeless. The city goes on, moving and unchanged, even though now its people, seemingly bathed, walk with a stomach sunk with dirt. Even though now its people, seemingly unscathed, walk with a mouthful of mud. My mouth used to pray out, "I love you," like it was holy. The light that filled my belly felt like glory, but it was just as airless as foodlessness, hunger matched by fullness, light replacing the revelry for rescue. My heartbreak hurts like this empty was already there, just waiting to show its face. This cathedral was always cracked. Not everything holy is whole, but I still watch it dissipate in disbelief. I want to mourn you, as deep as I loved you, but first I have to walk an old city with new bones full of broke. Glass under my toes, reminders of this rigid religiousness, wherever my pupils go. On my cell phone, Stanley Park, or bumblebees, it all just looks like forgotten forests of mercy turned factory far away. And imagine fullness that was always clay and blood in my stomach, in my mouth. This relentless loneliness misses the rhinestones of your body and your humor in the days that we chased crossword puzzles and raced bumblebees, having the baby stuffed sloth at the bookstore, teaching him the Bible of our beautiful make-believe, how colorful and contagious, how loud and how holy, how hollow, how hurt, how skin, how flesh, how Simon keep moving as it all crumbles. How it comes from under you, how it's meant to be momentary, but even knowing this, it all feels meaningless, how keep thinking, how keep walking and don't think, how don't think and don't remember, how these shackles pray that a fictional place will rebirth itself one day, how this city has changed and it's only my mouth and my stomach that stay the same. This city splits into soliloquies that only I hear, to smile, with a mouthful of techno-betrayal and cutthroat gospels collapsing, you and I go back to the dust from Mars. The notebook unwrites itself, the love undoes itself, the sex wraps itself back up, and I am stuck making love to memories of mistakes in a cityscape that feels bleeding and bare, yet imaginary all at once. I'm at the intersection now. It is 3:30 a.m. And though our bodies stopped being each other's make-believe, I will not ever wish for cathedrals to uncrack themselves. I do in this moment, however, wish for a flicker, for a switch off, for the whole city to sleep, and for myself to stay awake, in stillness, in awe. In this moment, I hear a car honking like it is 10 streets down, and I convince myself the sound is you, awake, saying my name to yourself in a whisper.
Yeah, I won't lie by saying that we have our syllabus written on a piece of paper on the here, but just in case of curious. I also like the effect that we have grease all over our intended.
How else am I going to do my makeup?
Yeah, exactly.
It matches my outfit. I want to hear your poem, please.
This is, well, I guess you don't want to hear it anymore.
Please.
Okay, I'll do it. Yes, this is the poem. Radioactive elements live life in decay, perpetually shedding particles, rearranging their atoms like dress-up until they need new words with which to call them. This is how they settle themselves, put their mushroom cloud blooms to bed. I lost you like radiation, like my very material stripped from the thicket of me, though stabilizing. Even after all these half-lives, when you say you still love me, you mean you love the last isotope of me. You love the old language where you still have traces in my nomenclature, my anatomy in atoms. It has taken losing parts of myself to feel this steady. So I wonder why all the scientists insist on calling this growth decay. Thanks.
Actually,
yes.
I actually have a haiku that I wrote as well that I'd like to share with you, Emma.
Okay.
It's called How Many Men? How Many Men is the title. Okay. Does it take to change the light bulb in my mouth? It is always turned on now. Thank you. But Emma, so ever since my breakup,
yes.
I started praying.
What do you pray for?
I pray that my dick.
Your dick what?
My dick get as big.
As big as what?
As big as the Eiffel Tower.
Well, why would you want that?
Okay, so I could fuck the world.
For precisely how long?
For 72 hours.
There are 3 cups on our prop table. The one that's most empty is most likely mine because I love my water. I'm going to be doing a poem for you. What? I just slurp my ice cubes sometimes. This poem is going to be a bit of a mockery of the kind of stuff that I used to do. I mean, everybody writes different stuff when they first start out in poetry, and then they write different things when, you know, when you're in the moment. I think poetry changes every year. But the sad thing is, the first poem I ever wrote is actually my most popular one on YouTube, and it's my least favorite poem. I haven't performed it in like years.
What's it called, Andrew?
It's called I'm a Child. I was 14 at the time, and You know what? Oh my, I was working. I work for an arts council, but they can only afford to pay me for 9 hours a week. So I was there on Saturday, and somebody comes up to me and she's like, "Oh, so like, are you in high school?" And I was like, "I'm a college grad." But thank you. And then she was like, "Oh, I feel so bad. I can't believe I called you 14. Don't worry, like I've been carded at a 14A movie on a date. You don't know where I've been." So this poem, I'm a Child, it was back when I thought that poetry slams were just yelling matches, for one reason or another. But today our goal is to show you a little bit of the different sides of poetry, and this one we just call the button poetry poem. I want to tell you a story that sounds like this, so I can get on button poetry. I want to tell you a story and then get really quiet when I talk about my personal life. Like, my great-great-great-grandpa just died, and now I'm afraid that one day I could die. Also, I want to get really loud when I talk about society. Like 99% of society doesn't know the actual definition of society, but statistics say you should. I want to give you the anxiety poem. Like it's the only anxiety poem you'll ever need to hear. It'll be so good, you won't even need to know that there are other types of anxiety than anxiety. I want to tell you a funny line about my queerness and then subvert it, like, I just told you a joke, but now you're homophobic. Because this is all just a big joke to you. I want to tell you a joke. How many poets does it take to change a light bulb? 1. Why does the light bulb need changing in the first place? 2. Who the hell told it to stop shining? 3. Why is society so homophobic? 4. Why can't the light just love its own lights? Because love is love is love is light is light is light is bold is bold is bold is change is change is change is cop. I want to cock my head. If it makes you think I'm more intense, I want to use words like cock to shock you. If it gets me a higher score, if it'll make you share this video with your button poetry YouTube friends, I want to stop in the middle of my, even if it doesn't make sentence. I want to over-enunciate like I'm angry at spelling. I want to end the poem when you least expect it. The poem's not done yet. You're interrupting me. I guess I should call you my great-great-great-grandpa because he interrupted me a lot, and I have a lot of mixed feelings about my great-great-great-grandpa. But I did not write this poem for him. I wrote it so I could get on button poetry. Where are they? Found them. Thank you very much. So, we have a special little treat for you all. We have an amazing teacher who has just flown here this morning, made so much effort just to be here with us today, and we're so happy to have her. Mona is such an inspiration to all of us. She's been a professionally touring spoken word poet for the past 10 or dozen years or so, probably creating work for
a dozen years.
At least.
I'll take it.
That's like half of my future age? You still don't know, right? Some of you are like 15. So without further ado, would you all please clap as loud as you can for Mona Mousa.
I don't know why I even tried to compete with them. How is everyone? Yeah? Good? Yeah? Can we give it up for these folks? I met them at Voices of Today in Toronto, which is a dope youth festival put on by actually Kate here, one of the organizers, is actually from here. And is your Woman of the World rep, right? Am I right or not?
I think so, yeah.
So let's give it up for these folks, like poetry and bringing it. I'm going to read a couple poems, and I think the format is we're going to do some interview stuff, and then I'm going to read a couple poems. I don't memorize things anymore. Actually, I can't. It's not even my choice. Head injuries are a bitch, hey? So, forgive me. I'm going to read a couple poems, and then I'm stoked to talk to y'all. Also, don't get intimidated by this poem. In an interview, the journalist asked me if I wanted to be a mother one day. As if every woman can biologically be a mother one day. The journalist asked me what I would name my daughter, and I said on most mornings, I think I'd like the name Indy, because I'd hope she'd get my wonderless need for independence, but most nights I settle on the name Miracle, because my mother always taught me to never rule out the improbable. My mother has a relationship with her God so strong that she could swear she has tea time talks with him, tells me she prays for me. And I always want to ask her to ask him why he broke my body. My cousin says I am not broken. I'd probably name my daughter Resilience, because I come from a long chain of broken, persistent women who refuse to put their broken pieces back together. The journalist asked me what I would teach my daughter. And I wanted to say, I teach my daughter to do her best when the world takes from her something she wasn't ready to give up yet. I wanted to say, I teach my daughter that sometimes nightmares do come true, but so do dreams. And honey, you may not know now, but miracles do happen. There's a reason you were named after the unlikely. But what I do say to this journalist is I teach my child to never ask people questions like these. The journalist stops and apologizes profusely, inserts another platitude here, mentions another vague statistic there about how many kids don't have homes, comments again with an obscure generalization about adoption or in vitro or how they're doctors for these kinds of things. Doesn't forget to end it with some sage advice about how you're only 28 and these tests don't get it right the first time around, the second time around, the third time around. I'd stop the journalist and say, though I talk about my mother at length on stages doesn't mean my goal is to be a mother one day. You still don't get it, do you? And she backtracks and goes to say, she's a feminist so she knows a woman isn't measured by her child-making capabilities anymore. There are plenty of children who need to be adopted, right? These are not the easiest of times to raise a child, right? Think of the things you will never have to worry about, right? I cut off the journalist and say, let me tell you a story. I once worked for a Christian radio station who asked me to MC a pro-life gala, and I almost lost my job when I told them I was pro-choice and only for the reason I wasn't given one. I told my boss that my mom has her God on her sleeve like her heart, that I didn't come before she let two go. I tell my boss that my mom prays for me every day to a God who laughs at man-made pro-life mandates. He'd say, modern-day evangelism has really fucked it up, hey? The journalist looks at me and reassures me I did the right thing, that pro-life lifers have always made her so angry. I look at this journalist and pose the question, that in asking me when I plan to be a mother what the difference between her and them really is. She gets upset and says, I'll never tell a woman what to do with her body. Before I leave, I ask, isn't that what you just did? Thank you. So I talk about it's known if you're going to ask me something stupid, I'm probably going to write something about it and you're not going to like it. I got a really long apology letter when that video went online from her editor. That interview never actually made it to print. My mom is amazing. The women in my family are amazing. Women of color are some of the strongest people I have ever met. You know, like, I think there is something to say about an unconditional love you give to a world who doesn't give it back to you. When you're told constantly you are the other, or you're less than, or because you're different you're less beautiful, you're a little more broken. And we'll accept you, but just enough for our own comfort, just enough so like Egypt is this cool little tourist place you go to, but people only want to get involved when it looks good on social media to be a part of a revolution. And the women in my family, like, we're at revolution every day. So I wrote this for them. And goddamn, if anyone ever tried to tell you it is possible to tame an Egyptian woman, you call us crazy. I call us tempered by hot sands. When you meet me, listen carefully. Hear me speak. My lips drip of honesty, of surrender, of coriander. On first bite, I know I am stubborn, olive pit hard, but will linger on your tongue, emotions sticky like molasses, like too much, or just enough melted butter and icing sugar, aftertaste like market sweets. And if you ask me what my secret is, I will say it is the family's, passed down from my mother's mother's mother. I do not know her name, but I probably bear a striking resemblance of her. You cannot mistake the women in our family as anyone but one of our own. This recipe, if it was just another heirloom, I'll still pass it on, or I'll try. So if it doesn't taste exactly like home, forgive me. I'll say, look at my lineage. Forgiveness runs through us like white blood cells, like tiny graves, like dignity. My mother embodies this, forms thought patterns, mirrored of the constellations that have been rumored to have built the pyramids, uses Orion's belt to tie back her hair, will tell you that death is just another word for resilience. My mother's eyes said to me, let your skin be a demonstration of the political statement that is our bloodline. I never knew much of my mother's motherland, and I'm still trying to master fluidity. I'd say I always knew that I was born of the Nile, of alabaster and raw silk, felt frozen rivers melt to red seas under my touch and freeze back again. I wear this skin over bones like mesh over African drums, so I know there's something in me. I just have yet to find it. When people ask me where I am from, I will say my mother. She is the first place I called home. I imagine she is what Audre Lorde once meant when she said, I am deliberate and afraid of nothing. When you meet me, listen carefully. Hear me speak. I'll just say, look at my lineage. When you ask us what our secret is, I will say it is the family's, passed down from our mother's mother's mothers. We do not know their names, but we probably bear a striking resemblance of them. You cannot mistake the women in our family for anyone but one of our own. You'll know us by our humility. Our lips drip of olive oil, of fight, of cumin, and if this recipe was just another heirloom, we'll still pass it on, or we'll try. So if it doesn't taste exactly like home, please forgive us. Thank you. I'm not going to lay down on this table like I planned earlier. Because you're videotaping this. We're going to semi-professional. Am I supposed to hold a wheel?
Yeah. I mean, the show is called Between Three Wheels, so I guess one of us has to go on the other side.
Oh. Am I supposed to sit between you guys?
Hold on.
I'll sit on this side. No, she's leaving. No, I'm sitting between you.
Oh, you're sitting. Okay, there you go. Andrew, you're going to sit on top of that green orchestration?
I'm going to stand next to it.
Okay. Stay behind my shoulders. All right.
Yeah, right?
Please don't die on my watch.
It looks very appealing, doesn't it? Like, I want a storage rack like this.
So the premise
Not a real...
cutting you off. So the premise of this show is we want to highlight what poets' lives are actually like and what it means to be a poet, because we feel like sometimes, you know, if you're into poetry slams and that kind of thing, if that's what you like, there might not be a lot of opportunity to get to know people outside of that world, and you know, people are kind of maybe restricted by the genre or all that stuff. So today we just want to talk about that, have some fun. Thank you for people that donated their questions to us. Yeah.
I've got some questions prepared because we asked online.
And it was really offensive.
Yeah.
Actually, the questions.
Open-ended, we have gotten some weird things. Recently, we've been on Reddit. Does anybody know Reddit? It's a very scary world. And we thought about putting some of our comments as our next chapbook reviews. because they're just so fun and lovely. But our first one comes from, I believe, DF Parizeau. He's asking, when do you feel like a poem is ready to share with someone other than yourself?
So, I actually hate sharing my poetry with anyone, right? And no, but I mean in the working stage. My partner is a poet, and like at the beginning of our relationship, I was like, do not ask to hear my poetry. You'll hear it if I let you come to one of my shows. I get really nervous about my work. I think I see my work as more, this is gonna sound, it's gonna take the romance out of poetry for anyone else. I see my poetry as like a production line almost. Like I have shows that I'm booked for and I have to be at, and I realized early on with my own anxieties and my own shit and like my inability to focus on one task, that I was gonna sit down between December to January, beginning of February, and I was gonna write an entire set that I was gonna perform on the road. And I was gonna take a year to like work on editing and memorizing, because I'll admit, like, English was not the first language spoken in my home. So grammar and editing was not a reality for me. So I get so intimidated by my work because I know that I'm gonna use something wrong somewhere. So I don't really like showing it to anyone because it's hard. So I give myself a year to find that person I'm comfortable to bounce my work off of, for me to try to memorize. Pre-car accident, I could memorize. Post-car accident, I'm starting to forget the stuff that I have memorized. So I give myself a really good time to be comfortable with the work I'm putting out, especially because this year I've started talking a lot about my queerness and understanding what that means, understanding what it means to be a daughter of immigrants in a world, like my dad lives in the States and his passport is an Arab country, and writing poetry that says I'm an activist against systems, and to share it with people is a really scary thing. Because I feel like my family's life is on the line every poem I put out. And I'm not willing just to share my poetry with anyone who's not going to hold it with as much weight as it needs, with the strength it needs. So I haven't shared my poetry much with people other than mentors, you know? I feel like I know the poem is done. Ian Kediku, so there's a really good documentary where there's this really cool poet from Toronto named If, and who's going to in Paris, there's this world competition, what have you. And Ian said in the documentary that until you've put everything you can into a poem, it's not done. And I really felt that, because I can go back to something many times and insert something or change something, but then there's this moment where I'm like, I've given this everything I have. And I hate that poem a little less than all the other ones, so that's a sign. But yeah, I guess. Did I answer your question?
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Emma, do you want to pick a question from the box?
Sure.
I'm so nervous about this question box thing, because you showed me the ones that are on
The
your
person who
Facebook,
wrote
but
this is in the audience right now.
oh shit.
If your teeth could talk, what would they say?
If my teeth could talk, what could they say?
Yeah.
I don't know why I looked at you like you. I was like, what do your teeth say? If my teeth could talk, what could they say? Stop drinking so much whiskey. Probably not. I think my teeth enjoy our friend whiskey. If my teeth could talk, what can they say? I don't know. That's so abstract. I don't understand abstract shit. Like, I don't understand the question. Can you explain to me what this question means?
I feel like you answered it well.
Okay.
With the whiskey. And
Sorry to whoever's question that was. If it wasn't fulfilling, we can sit down later. You can tell me what you want my teeth to say to you. I don't know. Sorry. I appreciate you putting out a question, because that's vulnerability on its own.
This is a question from another studio audience member. Studio audience? We're filming live from Vancouver, BC. Studio audience. What is real life like?
What is real life? No, my real life is hard. No, this is a great question. Do not take Instagram as my reality. My Instagram is glamorous. What is real life? You want to know what my real life is like? I co-parent with my cousin who just got out of a divorce, and I take care of a 2-year-old while trying to balance booking and running a business and writing poetry and trying to balance past traumas from relationships and like figuring out how emotions fit into my life. Like real life is hard. And I think poetry, there's a really funny thing about this. It makes real life seem a little more easy to live than that it actually took to write. I don't know if that makes sense. Real life is fucking hard, but it's beautiful and it's worth it. And I think that if you really want to know what real life is, get out of your own heads and pick up a phone and call someone. Stop texting each other. Call your friend and say, hey, how are you doing? Have you gotten up today? Call your friends of color and be like, I know it's a political statement to leave your house. Do you want to go for coffee? What do you want to talk about? Like, I think real life is human connectivity. It's being there for each other. It's community. Real life will never be easy. And I think that when you have artists and youth poets, like, y'all taught me so much about real life when I met you at Voices of Today. Because I really was starting to lose a lot of hope in, like, what life looked like. And are we just doing this poetry thing to just, like, I call Poetry Slam a circle jerk of Oppression Olympics. And I was like, is this real life? But real life is messy, but it's beautiful and it's worth it. Does that make sense?
That's an awesome answer.
I feel emotional. What are emotions?
I really like how you don't compete with your real life and all of these things that may or may not be themes in your poetry. I feel like you have such an enormous amount of like when I look at you, like you feel proud of your work, and that's something that I want in my life. So I was wondering, how do you find your own self-support systems to deal with everything that people deal with in order to kind of find healing and art and creativity again?
I think that one thing I take issue with is the use of trigger warnings in the poetry community. And I think this is a good...
Does everybody know what a trigger warning is?
So, for me, in this body and identity that I live, I was not given a warning when a lot of these things happened to me. When I came into this poetry world, and I feel like when I started poetry like 10 years ago, the topic around like the sensitivity of things wasn't talked about so much. Like I don't feel like I heard the words trigger warning, and I heard like about anxiety and poetry really over more recent years. And I think the support systems I created in my life, because I didn't have that earlier in my poetry world or my creative world, was my mom always said, you have to get up and keep moving because the world is going to leave you behind if you don't keep up with it. And so I think it is that that tough, like, we don't want to hear it when we're hurting, but put some like dirt on it and keep moving is like, I think just how my mom raised me. And she's like, there's, you know, I'm always here for you when you're hurting, but the world's not going to give you the same courtesy. The world's going to keep moving. And I think that I just decided to take the world head on and thought about the support systems after. I just dealt with the situation. I just thought of how I'm going to heal after, but I need to get through the initial thing right now. Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard also, what do you need to get through the next 24 hours as a question you can ask when...
Oh, sleep and coffee. I got off a flight. I got off a flight at like, what time did I?
It was 9:30,
yeah.
9:45.
I didn't sleep last night. I ruined my favorite Lululemon vest. This has been my past 24 hours. If you want to know what I need over the next 24 hours, I ruined my, this is going to sound so materialistic, but there's this one vest I never washed, so I didn't realize it still had black liquid or black ink. I put it in the dryer, ruined half of my tour luggage, was already in Kitchener from Toronto, had to figure out repacking, then getting on a flight, almost missing my flight, getting into Vancouver, trying to figure out what to eat, and then figuring out what I wanted to talk about here, and I haven't slowed down. So I think what I would need over the next 24 hours, is more of like, just to chill. Nothing abstract, no like wild,
whiskey.
Yeah, no, I'm doing that. I'm going to some bartending event tonight.
Oh, okay, there you go.
But what I need over the next 24 hours, I think like, it's just some me time and whiskey. I'm not an alcoholic.
Mona, would you like to take a question?
No. I'm not answering this question. Do any words rhyme with orange?
The answer is yes. Door edge.
What, in your opinion, has been the strangest object of inspiration for a poem?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm working on this book right now of poems called Occupational Hazard, and all the poems are with my ex-partners and titled by what they do for a living. We have...
Can you give us some of the best?
Yeah. I swear I don't have a dependency on alcohol. There's the whiskey ambassador. There's the professional baseball player, the used car salesman, the white feminist painter, and the doctor divorced 4 times.
So does the painter paint exclusively white feminists?
No, she's just like a white feminist. In our relationship, whenever we have a problem, she'd be like, this brush stroke is a great example of the systematic oppressions that is leading you to this. I'm like, fuck off. Like, I just need to know what to wear today. Like, what to have for breakfast. Not a metaphor for what I want to do with the rest of my life.
If we could do one more serious and funny, I wanted to hear about your agency, Feather and Anchor.
Yeah.
When did you start that?
So I was living in Winnipeg for 5 years. Don't ask me why. I moved there to work for that Christian radio station. Like, that was a true story. I'm too queer to work at a Christian radio station. When I realized that I was too queer to work at a Christian radio station, I left my job and I stayed in Winnipeg. And Winnipeg was a great place for being able to travel for poetry. Like, I could drive to Saskatoon within 7 hours. The flights here are way cheaper. Flights back to Toronto was... Winnipeg is actually the heart of the continent. It's right in the middle. And I was traveling a lot more for poetry, and I was living and interacting with a lot of musicians. And I was seeing all my musician counterparts get all these really cool opportunities. But I was seeing all my poet friends, and secretly I was like, my poet friends have way better work than you, and you're getting way more work than them. And I was like, I think there needs to be more of a voice for poets to be able to make money off this thing that is amazing and so versatile. And then I realized too that in these agencies, there's a lot of representation for white voices. There's nothing wrong with that. But marginalized voices, I feel, always got second fiddle. Like, I always got picked second to a white poet for some things in Winnipeg. Even on, like, I remember there was a Black History Month once where there was one poetry series happening, and it was weekly, and all the poets that were booked in White History Month, or Black History Month, Black History Month were white. You asked me if you need a White History Month, I'll tell you why you're wrong. And I realized there needs to be more voices for marginalized folks who feel like the world has taken away their voice. And I feel like I've been resilient as fuck, and I don't really, the world's not going to take me down. I don't really care. Like, I am not my marginalizations. Like, do not try to put me in that corner or I'll come for you. I did that for you guys. I inserted that for you. Okay. And I realized, like, I have a lot of really good friends who should get out there but aren't. And when I was leaving Winnipeg, I didn't know what I was going to do. I felt a little lost. This is a place I made my home from the age of, like, 23 to 28. Like, what do I do? And so I was like, let's find a cool name. Like, this is an idea I kind of have. Let's find a cool name. Feather and Anchor. Dope. I like the meaning of it. It's to, like, anchor yourself to a goal in order to be able to just, like, fly free and go and, like, live your dreams. And I found the domain name, and I bought it, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Design a website. What's your mission statement? And then I had a website, and it had everything that I wanted to convey. And I guess the root of it all is I'm tired of being on the road. You know, I have celiac. I get really tired. I got into a bad car accident 2 or 3 years ago. My body can't keep up with touring. But I have these really great resources and these great connections and a lot of great poets who don't have the chance that I maybe had. Like, over here at this side of the room, RC and Duncan and Shane, these are all people who have seen me at all points of my career. They've booked me. Like, Shane saw, one of my first ever poetry events was Shane's show. You know, I've grown, and I want that for these poets who might not have that chance. I feel like when I started, there were really great mentors that were community and they still exist. And there's really great veterans in this community who show that they're still doing poetry 10 years later. But I wanted to give that to people of color and queer folks. And so I started it so I can be home more and experience my family in a way I haven't. I've been so far removed from my family. And so yeah, sort of just community. I go on tangents and I never know if my answer made sense.
It did.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I like the balance between administration and creativity or poetry and performance.
Yeah.
There is a real balance to be struck, and that's what we like to hear. That we don't often hear at poetry slams. You never really know what goes on behind the scenes because everybody's shouting something.
Stop yelling. Especially if you're a dude. I don't want you to yell at me. Stop yelling into the microphone. I'm going to walk out of the room. Sorry. That's fine.
So maybe for a last...
this box makes me nervous.
Okay, for one last nervous question. It's just a swirl. No, I'm kidding. How does one get past writer's block? Writer's block.
Okay, writer's block is laziness.
She said she'd be blind.
Get over this ego of the creative process means you can't write unless you're sad or you're in this black hole where you can't write for like 2 to 3 weeks. If you want to book gigs, you need a product. If you want to book gigs, you need poetry. Stop relying on writer's block. Like, find some writing prompts. Go talk to people. Read an article. Like,
call up a friend.
Yeah, like this writer's, like there is a real block, right? But it's just a detour, right? Find your way, like the path to a poem has never been a straight and narrow line for me. It's always been this tangle of a mess. Like, you know when you tangle a necklace chain and it's the most frustrating thing to untangle? That's what writing poetry is like for me. I don't know about you. But I just think we rely, there's a poet, Buddy Wakefield, and we were in a writing workshop, and that's the first time I heard writer's block as laziness. So if you're, actually I shouldn't say laziness because that's really ableist. I'm sorry, that was the wrong word to use. But get over yourself. Like, and once I realized that writer's block was just an excuse, I don't think I felt it in the same way. I've had blocks, I just need to find another way around. Yeah.
Like with that movement you're talking about, you just push through and keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, exactly. Untangle the chain. Yeah.
It's worth it, even though it takes time. You're going to look beautiful with that jewelry. So, Mona, would you please allow us one more poem? Would you read it for us?
Encore performance.
Encore performance.
Encore.
Oh. Hi, everyone. Now that I've talked your ears off,
Just make sure the decor is okay.
I'm scared to touch it. I see the grease all over you all, and I'm like, oh. It took me way too long to do my makeup. Do you want to hear a poem about my grandpa or about queer love?
Queer love.
Okay.
I'm biased.
I had a few. Thank you all for coming so much. I remember when the circus would roll through our sleepy little cottage town. Wrapped in the arms of Lake Ontario, every August we'd see Ferris wheels and white horses draped in romance and sapphire. The twinkle lights lit up the lake to remind you that magic still exists somewhere. I remember being surrounded by the population of that lake that seemingly came out of nowhere for one weekend. When the morning rolls around and the big top is gone as fast as it came, you find that figuring it out is a lonely place. When your mind tells you that you're not quite this and your heart screams you're not quite that, when figuring out your sexuality becomes what feels like a never-ending three-ring circus. I tell people, my marquee would read, the all too common and all too true story of a love conquering doubt in the hearts of the people you meet along the way. When you leave the lion's den that is figuring it out, I ask of you to remember that this all existed to remind you that this love lives in the grains of each of the 206 bones in your body. I will say when you start to doubt, maybe at the edge of the shore and look out to the horizon, only then in that honest moment you will find that this love is a legacy. It is a lighthouse built by thousands of calloused hands gripping hope and refusing to let go. This love is the home inside a house. Glitter trails at front doors that refuse to fade. They show up night after night like unapologetic constellations that refuse to get lost in city-like pollution. This love is the Janet Mocks taking on the Breakfast Club with grace. The Frank Oceans whose love songs don't bend to the gender rules of his genre. This love is femmes coming out every day. For femmes tired of coming out every day, for femmes well practiced in hiding how tired we are. This love is one that has met resilient flower patches in the wake of bullet rounds mistaken for the pulse of the base. For Arab queers, we too exist loudly. Darling, I know this love can feel like walking on never-ending tightrope suspended in Tornado Alley in the calm before the storm. Which is to say, if there is anything that fighting for this love has taught me, it is to keep on the tip of my tongue the names of those who made my fight less of a bloodshed, less of a I don't know if I'll get through this kind of fight, type of fighting for this love kind of fight, remembering those who fought before me, for me to be able to love this kind of love. It is what a wise woman once meant when she said, silence will not protect you. This poetry is not a luxury. These people and this love asks of you to bear it all, to teach mountains to believe in giants. To leave the lake behind in pursuit of the sea, challenges you to pull your lungs still breathing out from behind your splintered ribcage, hold them just under the surface of the ocean to remind them to match the pull and carry of the rip current. This love is a promise. Like how I promise when this fight has you coming undone, I'll be here to piece you together. I'll take my rib needles and my heartstrings and sew you up. I'll stuff all that you've lost back into you and stitch it so you won't ever lose it again, and when you're whole, I'll breathe life into you. For all those who came before and those who came before them. But this love is a reminder that to have hope is to surrender yourself honestly to the future, and that commitment to the future is what makes the present inhabitable for someone else.
Yeah. Wow, that was amazing. Wasn't that awesome? Let's get moving on. Andrew, if that was a poem in a poetry slam, what score would you give that?
100%.
I never score well in slams. Don't score me.
I can score slams with 100%. It's real.
That's not even a real number.
Yeah, it's 100% out of 10. That's definitely it.
Okay, speaking of real numbers, hi, I'm Angelica Poversky, freshly single. Here's my business card. Here's my number. You can follow me on Facebook. You can add me wherever you like. Here you go. Enjoy. These are very special. These are only for the people that I want to be with romantically.
I thought I was the only one. They didn't even hit you. Can we just do the poem? Let's just do the poem. Just get it. Just set list on the floor.
Just speaking about 100%. I breathe success. 100%.
Satisfaction.
100%.
Ambition.
100%. 100%. 100%. Me at a poetry slam. Eye contact. Eye contact. The most innovative use of hyperbole. Wow, you killed that. 10 out of 10. Me making friends. Confident high five. Confident high five.
Wow, we would love to be friends. Thanks for inquiring.
Me at a job interview. Firm handshake. Firm handshake. Thanks for applying. You are such a great candidate. Me. I am not good enough. I'm God enough. You might think that I'm Homo sapien. I am rather auto-champion. I breathe Zeus and exhale Poseidon. Stories of conquest swim in my blood. My semen is seminal. My chemistry is chemical. My fluids are flexible. I'm the most sensual skeletal pedestal prisoner. I am a prisoner to the metal. I'm trying to breathe better than the other god machines, when in reality, me at a poetry slam. Eye contact? Eye contact.
6.2.
Me at a job interview. Sweaty handshake. Sweaty eye contact. Sorry, we had a lot of great candidates. Me making friends. Sweaty high five. Sweaty high five.
Actually, we have a lot of friends, so...
Me, failure is my much more detrimental than oxygen. I am learning to breathe like a human again. And maybe that means that I'm not God enough. Certainly not good enough, but at least enough human. Thanks. The clickbait title for that poem would be "Girl Thinks Her Semen is Seminal." Girl thinks she has semen. Girl doesn't know biology. That's how you do things on Reddit. It just starts with girl and then followed by just an absurd thing. Anyways, if you noticed, I have this kind of burnt piece of jam under my eye. Or maybe it's, I don't know, just looks like a little piece of pink shit. It's a weird ass rash, what can I say?
A weird ass rash.
Is it an ass rash? You said it was on your eye, but which eye?
That's private information, Andrew.
You don't have to tell us if you don't want to, but...
Andrew, Emma, and I have all seen each other naked.
Like, I give consent for you to see me naked, but I'm not sure that I remember you seeing me naked. Was I in the shower?
You're in the bathroom.
You were in the bathtub.
Okay, right, I don't take showers.
I just said that sentence for shock value. What am I doing? Okay, yeah, okay, I have a poem now. Oh, yeah, wait, I just also wanted to mention that on the Reddit, so we've been really pushing our YouTube channel, like, really, really hard. We've hit 150 subscribers, I think?
150 almost.
150 subscribers, which is like more people than we all know individually, so that's good. But the thing is, so I've been dating, I've been going on dates with people, and as soon as I go on a date with somebody and I screenshot the text that they sent me and I put it into our group chat, FYI, that's what happens, you know.
And here tonight?
And Andrew sends me back, did he subscribe? Like every single time. So that's all that I use. That's all that they're for. Anyway, so this is a poem. I actually, recently a lot of people have left in my life. Outside of my breakup, other people moved away and died, and you know, all that stuff. I don't know why I said that with a laugh. That's, you know, grief is a sad thing, but there are people that have died. And yeah, my friend, actually my very good friend, my other best friend, is moving away tomorrow to Bali, not Bali. Those are different places, apparently. But yeah, so this is a poem called Living Memorials, and the one with music is called Living Memorials without the vowels. You can find it on my YouTube channel as well. Yeah, so here we go. The people we love never really die, or leave, or move away, because they stay inside, like reshaping dough, or a ghost, or God, I don't even know, but they are there. In your burning and your yogi soul, they are there. In the things we like and took and never returned, like albums, or shoelaces, or ways to pace a conversation, and in us. We speak like them in little ways. The words that we use sound like them sometimes. Sometimes, I dance with other men as if he's watching and proud that I'm loving again. Sometimes, I yell like he'd be proud of my use of curse words when he would say that my empathy was my greatest fault. I shake my tongue and shake off the salt in the same way that he told me to stick it out in the face of tragedy. His ghost hands are manipulating my mouth, and I'm happily recalling for myself the shape of his belief in me. Tongue out, eyes like factories, stomach ready to take on anything. I tell myself that I am fearless, and yet I remember the lost in my mouth. And now I remember the lost in my mouth. Like an alphabet rope to choke on that a magician keeps pulling out of me, a cord crucifying me to the same parts that were not there before him. It is as bitter as sweet. It is as holy as hardening to have part of your identity bred out of the memory of someone else. But I do not know if I resent it, because even if we can no longer connect, we will always be connected. And at times that I want to forget, my movements are an encyclopedia of ways that I've been dented by his touch. But at times that I want to remember, my movements are memorabilia of the days that I was bending for just as much, Parts of me are missing, and parts of me are wishing, and parts of me are missing, and parts of me are wishing for more love space. I see my skeleton like a vigil. I light it up night and day in a religious remembrance of the old and soft, the lost ordinary, love and lost brightly into the new mundane, a mixed bag of missing through the murkiness of missing. I steal his Netflix recommendations and his punchlines and the way that he made grilled cheese. I steal the way that she taught me to make British tea and that can lessen any tragedy. I quote books that he told me to read. And in this way, I believe that people still move through me, even if they had to walk away. In this way, I believe that I can take what I need and stay without needing to be in the grief of it all. The people we love left us with new tones of voice to use, bones to burn candlelit statues. We can use the tiny fires that break out in our abdomens, but we cannot choose whether or not we were affected. But we can choose what we make out of this fire. So what will you make out of the fire? So what will you make out of the fire? Thanks.
Just what you said about Andrew made me think of another thing about Andrew and about Reddit. About like just the weird comments that we get.
Oh yeah.
There was one that was specifically like Andrew's neck looks like too thin and he's dehydrated and you need to feed him water. I was just like, people on the internet are so wacky. And like, also another one was just like, these people are batshit crazy. And I don't know if that's like a subscriber thumbs up or thumbs down or what.
Yeah.
We'll tell you how to like each one has as we do.
Well, I thought, okay, well maybe I'm reading different comments.
Oh, that was a different one.
I read the one that was like, oh, the two girls are great, but the guy looks pretty thirsty for them. And I was like, what? Did you watch it?
Oh yeah, and that guy was like, I gave them an honorary wank. That's okay, that's fun. It's fine. As long as you subscribe, that's all that we care. Anyways, this poem's about men. Oh my gosh, the theme.
Okay. It's the classic college party scene.
Your average student barely listening to the conversation ensuing beside him.
But that's when he hears it. An offhand comment from another party goer, but this he considers his golden moment.
He quickly calculates a clever comeback to dazzle his party mates.
He already tastes social acclaim on his tongue.
Not wanting to miss a single moment, he interjects
with words he considers worthy of divine praise.
With which that will send his crowds ablaze.
He unleashes a battle cry of, "That's what she said."
Let me introduce myself as she, as in.
That's what she said.
As in.
I'm the loudspeaker of everyone's bedsheet.
I speak the heat.
The want.
And everything that's in between. I walk the walk.
Call my words a provocative mock. Just don't gawk when unapologetically I parse your pillow talk.
I was made for this. Learn to spit.
Or swallow my pride early. Realized if sex was the language that everyone was speaking, then why not let them teach me fluency?
Now picture me.
I am the anonymous dream girl. I'm groomed to be pleasing, but grown to be faceless. Nobody knows my name, but the nondescript pays in spades, baby.
You know, I have role models too. Kim Kardashian stands naked in mirror selfie on Instagram. Calls it female power, is applauded. I walk down the street with cleavage as clear-cut as cleaver. Call it female power, am heckled with kissy face and puckered lips for men.
I ask the conversion rate between double tap likes and catcalls and ask how close I am to pinning my power where she does. I was sold the waving flag of sexual liberation.
And shift the beaten up butt slap of the joke.
Like sexy is a bone worth thrown.
Like we spend lifetimes trying to get the trick right.
Like our sexy gets airtime when it pairs with your comedy. She's been told to leave her sex at the door. Been told to unsheath her wants and needs like ski jacket and leave her ownership to melt at your feet.
She has so much more to say.
She is in the middle of the room now.
All eyes on her.
What a sight it is to see double entendre turn woman.
What a sight it is to see woman be instead of woman said.
To see speak for herself instead of spoken of. She packs punch, not punchline. She exists eternities after they all forget your joke. And you can quote us on that. This is my turn. I'm going to do a poem now. This is a poem. Oh, it's kind of nice over here. And I can see everyone else. I'm going to do a poem. This is about an experience I had. Yeah, so give us a subscribe. Yeah. The medical intern hands me a hand mirror so that I can fully appreciate the image that lies in wait between my stirruped legs. Appreciate is in fact the word the gynecologist uses. She also says rip roaring twice, which oddly puts me at ease. She has a nose piercing and presumably a cat, and it is here, mid-stirrup examination, that I find comfort in the clinical. The same way the cool balloon of a blood pressure test envelopes the arm in an airy swoon. Two women are looking at my vagina right now, and it's not a clickbait porn video. I'm being scrutinized as the systematic cellular system that beats, the soft boulder of biology I keep. I am streaked with predictability and smooth with normalcy. There is respect in being regarded as scientific phenomenon. Two women are looking at my vagina, and it's not some fumbled mystery. It's not a black box or a finger trap. It's not surprising. It's not an advertisement. It's not a selling point prize. It's not apologizing. It's not a shame. It's no one's priority. It's not the labia minority. It's not even sexy. A gynecologist is looking at my vagina like a dermatologist would behold my mole. Like a skin doctor would peer inside, like an ear doctor would peer inside my ear. So here, I am happy to just be a petri dish, happy to be as boneless as agar jelly as she prods unpromiscuously, as one might leaf through a dictionary, and after coming upon the sought-after word, examining the makeup of its meaning, a mechanism, a standalone, short-lived in its escape from connotation. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is why we have things on the floor, so we can always read them. We like to keep ourselves on track. Emma actually read that poem for me earlier today. Silly me, I confused a petri dish for potpourri, or whatever it's called. So she's like, oh, like it's like an examining, like a petri dish is something you examine. So I was like, oh, I thought you were just saying something like about a bowl full of smells. I don't know. But it just goes to show how much I really don't know about gynecology or anything. Or even science. Let's just give science. I'm out of there. Don't ask me science questions. But if you want to talk about mental illness kind of questions, those are fun. I have quite a few. So sometimes when we talk about them with our friends or coworkers, sometimes you just get it right away and you're like, oh yeah, I'm just having a really hard time today because like I was crying last night over like some dinner, and then they're like, oh yeah, like I have eating issues too, and then you just get it. But then other times, like I said, I have money, so not to brag. So other times I'll say like, oh, I'm just feeling really obsessive, and then like, why? Oh, I have obsessive compulsive disorder, for which I take medication and it's healing and I'm happy. But then sometimes people say things like, oh, oh, who's that? And you do poetry too, like that Neil Hilborn guy from Button Poetry. And if you remember my first poem, Button Poetry, it's a YouTube channel that it had a very famous poem on it about OCD, but unfortunately, so many people saw it that they were like, oh, so that's what OCD is like for everyone. So it's not, unfortunately. And at times it can be really embarrassing when you bring up certain things about yourself and you find out somebody doesn't have the same. So a secret that I have is I'm like deathly afraid of Boo Radley. If you've read To Kill a Mockingbird, There's a guy who hides behind a door in some kid's room, and I watched this when I was like 5. So I had that image in my head, which led to me obsessively checking behind every single door I walked through, always looking, checking twice, looking into the closets, under the bed, inside my drawers. I went everywhere. Because as a 5-year-old, you don't know, well, maybe you do, but I didn't know that Boo Radley was just a character. So it's called No, I Don't Have Neil Hildborn's OCD. Boo Radley screwed up my life. I saw him after the upper end of a staircase hit my feet too quickly. I was running. I had to run because for some irrational reason I really thought someone would grab my ankles if I didn't walk fast enough up the stairs, and some days I still do, but I consider it daily exercise. Since I stay inside my apartment on most days, I can still see his face. Gray and shaded in that old-fashioned filmmaking style, so it's scarier than a normal movie in color. If you haven't read the book, spoiler alert, somebody's kid is in a hospital or a hospital bed, and I don't know, and the dad's like, who helped you? And he says, well, Boo Radley helped me. And they're like, where's Boo Radley? But the kid says, Boo Radley's been standing here the whole time. He's just behind that door. And my 5-year-old mind is freaking out because I'm thinking, fuck, who the hell is here that I don't know is next to me? So every day on every door, I checked behind the hinges. I didn't once find him, but I believed he might be there. I might be seeing things. I mean, I don't remember seeing him in real life, in reality life, but I see the memories of mine side by side with my eyeline like my periphery is a rigged reality show. I'm photoshopped. Every night is a new Viewmaster. Except mine draws them like a live police sketch of a Rorschach test. I am filled with questions about help, but I'm too busy filling questionnaires to get help, so I help myself to a book. I read To Kill a Mockingbird in my alma mater's mandatory curriculum. To Kill a Mockingbird is the scariest freaking movie I have ever seen. But the book is burning out to be less than what I had expected from my childhood trigger. It doesn't trip me up or trap my mind like the movie did. So I surmise my assumptions were sumptuous second guesses to the real reality show that I've got a broken head. There's a reason I don't or can't watch scary movies. It only takes one film for my feet to fear the space between the bed and the floor, or the corner and the door, for me to check the locks twice, check them again. That time didn't count because my foot was in the wrong spot. Watch it. I wait to see if the lock clicks on its own. And while I'm waiting, I click the boxes of online advice columns. Check this box if you are okay. Check this box several times if you are not. Click your pen 1,000 times if you can't stand the wait it takes for your fake results to load, for your computer to tell you you have autism or OCD, for me to make a joke about vaccines when no one's looking. I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. If I fall under the infallible umbrella of young people with a vendetta against death, could I eventually avenge my own overdue date by taking count of everything in my apartment? Will I feel satisfied then? I feel like every moment I'm not doing something, I'm no better than a measuring cup with a leak. I'm a useless piece of pity party jewelry sent through Etsy. I keep trying to fill myself when I'm running on empty. My fridge doesn't smell like it used to. There are 26 frames hanging on one living room wall. I put the red ones together and then taped up pieces of my paper self with green tape in case I change my mind anytime soon. I have a corner desk that does not face the corner. So that chair is almost barricaded in. I didn't bring a dining table with me when I moved here, so I never really had enough to eat my breakfast on a higher chair than the floor, or my couch, or my desk. Did I do my best to keep the freshman 15 off? Graduate college at 19, move out into my new century-old apartment. I start to feel better. I think I am better. My brain batter is no better than Betty's bitter batch of batshit crazy cookies. I love looking like that kindergartner who ate all the crayons and lived until 20 to tell the tale. But the truth is, I used 6 staples for my Mother's Day card in kindergarten or something. And the teacher told me I ate all the staples. And I said, no, I didn't. The stapler just ran out, and I happened to be the last person who got to use it, so I need more staples, please. And she said, no, you ate all the staples, smiling. And then I remember bawling my eyes out in class. Like that was the first time I found out what gaslighting was. Like she wouldn't believe me even if I told her the truth. Do you think you grow out of that in your youth? These days, I don't meet a lot of people who believe me when I say I have OCD because they respond saying, yeah, I'm totally OCD too, but you are not a disorder. You are not so ADHD. You cannot be too bipolar disorder or not bipolar disorder enough. You are not a disorder. I don't say you're wrong, though, because I'm too excited by the fact that someone else might know what I'm talking about without me having to reference that girl from Glee or the guy from Monk or that poem by Neil Hilborn. Oh my gosh, is that what your relationship is like? Are you romantic? I'm tired. The 10 tons of tropey characters who just really like to clean. We are not OCD. Because then I should also be panic and phobia and eating disorders and a plethora of pain. We don't have enough time to talk about all the different dragon eggs warming themselves in the cave of my brain. I don't think we have enough time for me to correct you and tell you that when you say you're OCD and you tell me it bothers you when other people say scone, it's not going to be a good conversation starter. Because if you also have OCD, we're more likely to share panic than the pronunciation of a pastry. Thank you. So this is going to be some fun thing. If everybody wants to get out their raffle tickets. Woo! It's like a necklace.
Does everybody have a raffle ticket?
Who doesn't have a raffle ticket? We'll give you one now. Got two. Everybody got one? Well, so, everybody, so, we're all going to look at our admit ones, and we're going to take like 20, maybe 30 seconds, and we're going to think of a secret. Think of something that nobody else in this room knows, at least. If some people do, all right. But think of a secret that you haven't really told anyone. And it can be embarrassing, it can be fun, it can be whatever you want, but my secret would be like, oh, I'm still afraid of the dark and I'm a 20-year-old, like things like that. It's okay to laugh at.
Wait, Andrew, so...
this is the prize.
Oh, okay.
The prize is you get to unleash your secret and nobody will ask you about it, all right?
You admit one.
You admit one. Admit one. All right, so everybody got theirs? In 3, 2, 1. A mouse once made up with my shoulder. It's true, I've had a lot of mice and rats in my life. Not by choice. So now let's add up Angelica and Emma, and we are going to do one final poem for you all.
Okay. This poem has the worst ratio of likes to dislikes on YouTube.
No, there's actually... Actually, yeah, I think you're right. So we have 9 likes and 8 dislikes on this poem. The comments, okay then.
What am I watching? Why are you doing this?
I love how he started the whole thing by clapping. Yeah.
I can't believe you get paid to do this.
So what are we gonna do?
I don't really know what.
What are you?
What is it?
What are we gonna do?
What?
What?
Why are you changing places? What is the sound of one hand clapping?
What is the sound of one hand clapping?
What is the sound of 2 hands clapping?
What is the sound of 2 hands clapping?
Wait, but what is the sound of 1 hand, 2 hands clapping? 2 hands, 1 hand, 1 hand clapping.
What's the sound of 2 hands, 1 hand clapping?
I'll show you. Glad you asked.
Okay.
Oh, what? Oh.
Hey, babe.
Babe, what the?
Can you talk nerdy to me?
Babe,
What's up?
Babe, I want you to do me like long division. Show all your work.
Yeah, babe. Babe. Ooh. Babe, I want to tell you, Ranger is my middle username.
Ooh.
Yes.
Babe.
Babe, what's up?
I put the IQ into IQ. Babe.
Oh.
Hey, what is it?
Are you rising sea levels? Because I feel my shore is getting wetter.
Rising sea levels. Babe, I want to be your beta tester. Like, I'll try anything with you.
Oh, babe. In high school, I used to get straight A's, but now I just have double D's.
In high school, I used to get straight A's too. Now they're just gay.
Oh, babe. Babe. Oh,
babe, yeah.
Babe. Are you
Bill Nye? 'Cause I'm gonna come!
Talk nerdy to me.
So now, please leave and
Come to Van Slam next Monday.
yeah, Mona has a feature a week from tomorrow, so you can go and check that out. And if you want to check us out, you know where to find us. We're on YouTube, so we'll see you then.
Yeah, thanks everybody so much.